Thomas Matthew Crooks is the suspected shooter in Donald Trump's attempted assassination. The FBI identified the 20-year-old as the subject involved in the shooting. He reportedly positioned himself just 130 yards or about 400 feet away from the stage at Butler Farm Showgrounds where Trump was addressing the rally. An eyewitness who was there at the rally has claimed that he saw a man with a rifle on a nearby roof just moments before Trump was shot.
You could clearly see him with a rifle, absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police are like, huh, what? You know, like they didn't know what was going on. You know, we're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. You know, he's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage?
This is how the sequence of events reportedly unfolded. It was a busy day of campaigning in Pennsylvania for the former U.S. president. As Trump began his speech, eyewitnesses spotted a man with a rifle on a nearby roof. They alerted the police and Secret Service agents beforehand, but Trump continued with his speech. Moments later, multiple gunshots were fired at the venue. Loud bangs were heard at the rally. A bullet pierced Trump's right ear, after which he ducked. At this point, Secret Service agents were seen stationed on another roof near the gunman. Soon after, the suspected shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, opened fire and he was killed. The investigation is ongoing as the motive behind the attack is still unknown. As officials seek to understand Crooks' motivations, this is what we know about the gunman so far. Former schoolmates have described him as a quiet student who often came across as lonely. A classmate said he seemed socially reserved and recalled that he had often been bullied, but he did not recall hearing him discuss politics or Trump.
No, I didn't have any classes with him. My only interactions with him were just seeing him in school, and he was bullied, sat alone at lunch. I mean, he would sit alone at lunch. I mean, he was just an outcast, and you know how kids are nowadays, so they're going to see someone like that, and they're going to target him because they think it's funny or whatever. So it's the best way I can describe it. It's honestly kind of sad.
Crooks' neighbors have also expressed surprise as well as embarrassment over his involvement in the assassination attempt. A local district attorney in the neighborhood has said, you just cannot predict human behavior sometimes.
I've lived here my whole life, and you just don't think that something like this would happen in your hometown. We even had an attempt on a president, an assassination attempt since Reagan in 1980, and now for it to happen in your backyard, you just don't expect that. So it's embarrassing for the community, but at the same time, I mean, you just can't predict, human behavior sometimes.
According to the FBI, the shooter is believed to have worked alone, but his political leanings are unclear. Public records show Thomas Matthew Crooks was registered to vote as a Republican, but made a small donation to a Democratic-aligned group in 2021. According to reports, Crooks had been working at a nursing home, and the organization was shocked to hear his involvement in the shooting. Well, the FBI have stated that they are probing the incident as an assassination attempt and also potential domestic terrorism act.
We are investigating this as an assassination attempt, but also looking at it as a potential domestic terrorism act. So our counterterrorism division and our criminal divisions are working jointly together to determine the motive in this case.
The FBI has also said that the gun used in the shooting was an AR-style semi-automatic rifle, which was bought legally. Investigators believe that the weapon was bought by Crooks' father. Following the incident, investigators found a suspicious device in Crooks' car, which was inspected by bomb technicians and is being analyzed. They noted that suspected explosive devices have been collected as evidence. Officials are now in the process of searching Crooks' phone. Well, to speak more on this, we're now being joined by Irina Tsuskaman, who's an analyst and an attorney on U.S. national security. She's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show, ma'am. I want to first start by asking you that we've covered the assassination attempt, and Trump, he missed the bullet. But there's also, by a whisker, raising a lot of questions on the security provided to the former U.S. president. In your opinion, could this unfortunate incident have been averted by any chance?
There is a debate over who was actually responsible for the security lapse that led to the shooter being able to get close enough to actually grace Trump and also kill another person and wound two others. The Secret Service claimed that it was the law enforcement, the local police, local and state police, that were responsible for the medium and near perimeter, whereas the Secret Service themselves were responsible for the longer distance. The local law enforcement says exactly the opposite. They claim that that the Secret Service was responsible for everything. If there was a lack of coordination and communication effectively as to who was ultimately responsible, that in itself is a major security failure, especially in light of the fact that the Security Service did find that the rooftop that the shooter ultimately ascended was a security vulnerability hours before the attack, which gave plenty of time to secure it and prevent the shooter from gaining access to a promontory. Moreover, the reaction to the shooter once he became active was very slow, which allowed him to take several shots before he was finally killed.
Right. Irina, you do speak of how there was blame being traded between the security service and the local police there in Pennsylvania. The shooter was just 130 yards away from where Trump was addressing the rally. According to you, was there a lapse in judgment here, further raising fundamental questions about how the U.S. can perhaps protect dignitaries at a time of bitter polarization and widespread access to firearms in the U.S.?
Clearly, this is not going to be a huge voice of confidence for anyone else observing these events, given the sensitive nature of political gatherings. It could have a chilling effect on the general public. It could have a chilling effect on the visiting dignitaries who may then try to use their own security. And it brings U.S. reputation for security in bad light, and certainly signals to adversarial forces that there are serious vulnerabilities that are not being dealt with. Now, there was another incident a while ago involving several foreign organizations, namely the RGC and the Pakistani ISI, who had infiltrated the Secret Service and gained access to the members of the Secret Service responsible to the president, vice president, and the president's wife's team, which they were able to gain access through bribery, common corruption, which nevertheless gave adversarial foreign services clear access to top of the notch security of the country. So, given that previous incident that was never really dealt with and lack of transparency over the consequent investigation, it is no wonder that there is a shortage of public trust and that there are concerns that there are serious systemic problems and failures that lead to consistent poor judgment and lack of effective communications in times of emergency.
Right, Irina, you do speak of the impact of this incident on growing concerns in terms of foreign adversaries and other domestic terrorism that we are facing in the United States of America. This is not the first time that we've seen an assassination attempt. The last time that we witnessed such an act was in 2011 on Barack Obama. But it just comes down to a very important question, that who takes the onus right now? In your opinion, was this an intelligence failure or a lapse by the security service agents? Because the security service authorities have now said that the security will not be beefed up at the RNC.
Well, considering that it was supposed to be heightened in light of previous other incidents, including a failed past attack on Trump himself, including a failed attempted assassination against Congressman Scalise a couple of years back, I think it's really premature to not beef up the security. In fact, everything is pointing to a higher need for it in light of current polarization, heated political rhetoric, including, by the way, from some of the candidates themselves and even Trump, and general level of acrimony that is being amplified by foreign forces, online and offline as well. But I can tell you that it could be a failure on both parts and not necessarily just one agency. We don't know enough yet to say what is the full story with the attacker, but we do know that consequently explosives were found in his car, as well as additional material and explosives in his home. So clearly there were some red flags that were missed beforehand, as well as at the time of reaction to the actual incident.
Right, Ms. Irina. Thank you so much for joining us on the show with your insights.
Thank you.